Welcome to Lashback, everyone. My name's Natalyan.
And I'm Phoebe, and today we're talking about Brits abroad. Now, my childhood best friend abandoned me 20 years ago to move to the northwest of America, and now you, Nat, have abandoned me too. What's it like living in America?
Well, I love it. That's why I'm living here. But there's definitely some differences that I think we should talk about that I think are hilarious. For example, certain words that I say, nobody ever understands. So, for example, when I'm in a restaurant and I just want some water, no one
Water.
even, yeah, no one ever understands water. It's a consistent thing. So I find myself saying water, water, and then eventually I say water, and they say, "Oh." So
Oh.
I've even got to the point where I ask my friends to ask for that water. So it's just one of those consistent things. And another thing that I find is that no matter where I go, which is a compliment and it's nice, but it depends on the day. Sometimes I'm a bit tired for it. Even if I go in gas stations, supermarkets,
A what?
bars.
A gas what?
I know my friends always saying that it's the
A
petrol
petrol
station.
station.
But even no matter where I go, at least 5 times a day, probably more. Oh, where's that accent from? So it could be Australia, could be Irish, could be British. Why are you here? What brought you here? What made you want to live here? What's it like in England? So that's consistent. And sometimes I find myself saying now, it's a long story.
And is it a long story?
Probably not that long, but if you tell it 50 times a day, it's very difficult,
Yeah.
So I've started thinking that I should just tell people to read or listen to a voice note that I've
You should
pre-recorded.
tell them you're doing a podcast. Um, Tell me, are there any words that you say over there that you wouldn't dream of saying over here? Like my friend Liz, she always says rad. And I'm like, that just doesn't work in this country.
Well, I say I live in the South, so I'm in South Carolina. So I find myself saying y'all.
Y'all.
Hey y'all, hey y'all, and I can't say it British, hey y'all, because it doesn't make sense. So I say y'all, and I ordinarily say it. And I also, because I work with a lot of clients in America and Britain, I find myself adapting for words such as, do you want to take this route to work, which is British, versus route. So I find myself saying route, and I flick between English language and American language when I'm spelling, like colour. COLOR is American and COLOUR is British. And I'm quite proud of myself for that.
I'm quite annoyed when, obviously using Microsoft and indeed Google and other things like that, that, the spell check suggests the American first. We talked about English teachers last week, didn't we? And I'm like, I think I am inside a frustrated English teacher because I get very annoyed when I know I've spelt it right. I've put an S, not a Z or a
Yep.
Z. And it wants to spell correctly me. And I'm like, excuse me, Microsoft.
Excuse me, it's called the English language. English language. I found myself with like really good friends saying, no, 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 we invented the language.
Although,
And it's just hilarious. No, no, but it's just a humorous thing that I say. And I find myself as well, like if I look at my resume, for example, even possibly LinkedIn,
CV,
I think there's CV resume, exactly. Mailbox, letterbox, garage, and my
pavement.
friends often pavement, sidewalk. Well, when I was doing my driving test, that was a thing. We'll talk more about the driving component because there's some big differences there. Absolutely big differences there.
I'm
So
always I know we might be skipping ahead a little bit, but I'm always whenever I'm in the States, quite taken by how large the road signs are. Like, McDonald's or whatever on the side of the road. It's like the size of London. And in the roads over here, you just like nice little kind of billboard and, kind of sign off to the take next exit for whatever, IKEA or whatever. And then when you're in the States, it's like, IKEA! Excuse me.
it's so funny because I lived in Australia as well, as you know, and America. And when I didn't come back for a very long, if I don't come back for a very long period of time, I do find differences. Like I feel a bit like, oh. And a lot of American people have said that to me that it's like everything's Didn't you say about one of your American friends that, yeah,
Yeah, I had a mate come to, well, my mate visited, and she brought some American friends with her, and we were driving to a pub in London. Now London's built on London. It's a huge city, but lots of tiny little roads. And I was driving down this little. It's like a main conduit to get across. Everyone uses this road, and there's parked cars either side, and they're allowed to park on the curb. And literally you've got that much in between cars, and you just as a London driver, you're just like, go, I can do it, like this. And he was just like this in the seat. He was like, what are you doing? Because of course, in Portland, which is I know the best, 3 lanes each way, cruise control. It's like loads of space, huge mountains off in the background. And they're like, good, 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 like driving
go, go, go.
tiny, tiny little roads with cars coming in the other way. And there's this bus route as well, and this bus was coming, and he was literally, I won't swear because YouTube won't like it, but himself. He
Yeah,
was so scared. He was like, I don't know how accidents don't happen here. It's so
that's
funny.
that is funny, and the it's funny you say that because when I was on the topic of driving, on when I was doing my test here, there's so many differences, and that extra space was actually quite daunting to me because
Mm,
you've got so many places to go that you've got other drivers that are flying in and out. Like you've got a fast lane, right? You've got a fast lane in the UK, which is, let me remember, is on the
on the
right.
right.
Yeah. So it's on the left. But what I've found, and I can only talk about my highway, which is I-20, and people do use both. So because you might have a middle lane person, right? And then you might have someone slow on the right, slow on the left, which is the fast lane. So they will overtake on the right. So I understand why people sit in the middle. And in England, sitting in the middle is just a big no-no. It's a big
I
no-no.
know no one likes a middle lane hog.
No, but I think I might have become one because it's like you're safer. You're
Yeah.
safer if you just stay where you are. You don't have to keep coming in and out for people coming on the highway or motorway, as we like
And
to.
most motorways in this country, like 3, maybe 4 lanes. Some
Yeah,
some some motorways widen out to 5, maybe. But like in the States, you've got 6 or 7 lanes either way, and these
yeah,
massive trucks,
yeah.
huge trucks, the size of London, um, just driving down the road. So I was going to say something else then about roads. Oh, turning right on a red is
Red, yeah.
weird.
That
I've been
took
run
me a
over
while.
nearly run over hundreds of times. People just
I
turning right
was
on me.
confused by it. I mean, it makes sense to me now because I've been driving for a while, and it makes sense to me now because if you didn't have that, it just wouldn't work. But it took me a while. And here's a rhyme that you might not know: right on red, unless otherwise said.
Ooh.
That's how I remembered it because I couldn't remember. Can you go right on red? But then you do have the odd occasion where you can't. That's where the otherwise said comes in. You can't. But I've found that even when you can't, you do, or
And like
they do.
you don't have roundabouts, do you? You have like
There are
four-way
some, they
crossing.
call them circles, yeah, but they're few and far between. I've probably come across five in my life in
But the
America.
four-way crossing's weird because you've got to kind of remember who was there first. I'm like, that's
It,
just a recipe for
it
argument.
is. That's a good point because I wasn't even clear on that with my test, to be honest. Is we give way to the right, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's here. There is that rule, I think, but it's who's there first.
How do you know?
Yeah, I mean that's subjective, isn't it? Which is a recipe for disaster.
And I always get very lost with house numbers, like, 1924,
Yeah,
and you've got to remember that the 9 is the road and the 4 is and then the now. Where am I? Google. Literally lost. I said, fine, I'll go to Walmart. I'm cool. I can walk down the road. And I'm on my way back going, no, I literally can't. I don't know where I am because
yeah.
the house numbering makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever.
Because it's so. I mean, I grew up on a street and I was number 51, and there was probably, what, 100 odd? Do you think?
Yeah.
It's because the roads are shorter and you generally walk. That's something I've really had to adapt to. And of course, there's cities in America where people walk around. I've never lived in them. But here, for example, if you don't have a car, you, I mean, you can't survive without a car. Whereas when
Mm.
I come back to the UK, I don't have a car there anymore, as you know, because it's pointless. And I'm walking organically 20,000 steps, the 20,000 steps that apparently you should take to be okay health wise is just the norm. And same for you. You'll travel everywhere on trains and buses because you've
Londoners
had a
walk.
car before, yeah, but it makes no sense to do that. So you're just walking generally anyway. So I do miss being able to just walk out my door and go for a coffee. And again, if you lived in the town, I'm sure you could do that, but the norm is not to do that, right?
Drive-ins, isn't it? Drive-bys? No, drive-bys are when you
Drive-bys.
drive-bys when you get shot. A drive-in is when you get coffee on the way to work.
Yeah,
Or an ice cream or a taco
yeah.
or weed, whatever you want. The other thing I wanted to ask you, happy Thanksgiving, Americans.
Thank you,
Uh,
thank you, thank you.
Food. Now you guys get two that will stay away from the political things around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But you guys get two massive family meals every winter because you've got Thanksgiving and then there's Christmas, and we just get Christmas. I'm like, what's the deal with
I
that?
know. I'm liking that over here. Agreed. It's funny you say that
What
because
have you got?
I was at a friend's for Thanksgiving, which was 2 days ago. I was invited along. It was epic. It was amazing. And I've done a few Thanksgivings, but this was actually the first one where I really kind of was with a big family and I really enjoyed it. And I actually, word for word, I said, so you have two Christmases within a matter of weeks, don't you? Like 3 weeks. I said, that's very greedy, and laughing. But what I did say on a more serious note is that Thanksgiving is the Christmas without the presents. So it's really about being thankful. So I actually found myself, and it took me a few years to kind of even remember it was Thanksgiving, but I sent all my friends um, messages saying happy Thanksgiving and what I was thankful for, because a lot of my friends do that. So I think that's such a wonderful thing to do. Come together, feast together, spend the day together, and really think. You should really think about what you're thankful for. So I think that's beautiful, and it leads up to Christmas. But that's where the change, I couldn't understand Christmas dinners in America, but the Christmas dinner for us Brits is more like the Thanksgiving dinner. And then
Yeah, family
because you've
time.
just done, yeah, because you've just done that 3 weeks before, people, and I can only go by my own experience, people then tend to do whatever they want for Christmas Day because they've just done the turkey 3 weeks ago,
Poor
you know.
turkeys.
Yeah, yeah. So I know.
Vegan.
Yeah, you're vegan. We'll have a topic on that. Um, but yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And I really woke up thinking about how thankful I was for things, which I think is such a beautiful thing to do. And the only other thing I'd say to that is that you get to January and you've got nothing for months, whereas at this time of year you've got your Halloween, which is a big deal in America, which I absolutely love. I don't remember it being as big a deal in the UK. It might be now, but then
I
you've
think
got all these different things.
it's interesting, isn't it? Because some people complain about it and some people are well on board with it. But there's a lot of kind of cross-cultural things, like the word cool. My granddad used to hate me saying that 'cause it's an American thing, but it's very common now to say cool. In fact, it's probably a bit old to say cool now in London, or in the UK. Uh, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a lot of popular culture, shows like Friends socialize all of these terms and ways of being that are very American, that become very familiar because we see it on our television and in our movies. Hollywood, just completely disseminating the culture of America, or a culture of America. There's a lot about representation in
That's a good point.
terms of
Yeah.
in terms of diversity and stuff. There's quite a lot of conversation around representation on the screen and what have you. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Although I do think that one of the biggest differences I notice when I'm in the States and when I'm here is the level of hospitality. Walking into an American person's house and just going to their fridge and helping yourself to
I
something,
love that.
unheard of here. In this country, people are like, oh my God, did you see the neighbour came in and actually helped himself to tea out of the fridge? We won't be having those. Yes, thank you very much. Come back when you've got less time. And in America, like, yeah, sure, come in. This notion of hospitality. I wonder if that's, comes from, when America was the New World, for the Europeans, let's be right about that. Everyone had to stick together. It was a really difficult land to traverse, and everybody stuck together. And in this country, we're just fighting over space because we're like living on top of each other, really.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that, again, I'm talking about the South here, which is known for being really friendly. But I absolutely love that. I mean, I didn't really, I've moved to a new area in America and I am single on my own per se, right? And so I didn't really, and I've been really busy, I didn't really think too much about Thanksgiving. I would have been happy making a dinner and actually having a day off and watching Hallmark Christmas movies and pretending there was snow, But I got so many invites. I mean, even like some neighbors put something in our group and said, anyone on their own for Thanksgiving, we're doing a big outdoor turkey
Mm.
feast. And it's just so inclusive. And I mean, I have that in the UK. I'm not saying when I say something is great in America, it's not in the UK, because it completely is. But what I've found in the South versus other countries I've lived in the world, or other places I've lived in, even America, it's just so friendly and
Small
so
talk with
inclusive.
strangers.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that because that's what I've kind of strived for because I love that community. I like my time on my own, but you know what I'm like. We're very sociable people when we want to be.
Yeah, when I want to
And
be.
even going on to maybe sports is a good one here. We know how sports are massive in America, and that's something I think that we should adopt in the UK. We love our football, but I mean, even going through school,
Soccer.
yeah, I don't allow soccer being it's football, but you can go into many different sports, even the less obvious ones like sailing or something like that, and you can then help, go through school with that, which I think is a really good
Mm.
concept. And college football's massive over here. It's on TV, and there's two big teams where I live, and every Saturday during this season there's their match, and the whole town is watching it, whether it's in the local stadium or it's elsewhere, and everybody comes together. And I've kind of really jumped into that because you should when you move somewhere else, and I really really like that. We have that with football, but I mean there's so many different sports, and I like that sports culture, and I think that that's something we could definitely embellish more in the UK.
Interesting. It's the notion of uh, getting together,
Exactly.
being together.
Friday night football, Sunday night football, the Super Bowl, it's a big affair with your family. It's generally with your family as well, from what
Mm.
I've seen. So you come together, you get all your food, and you watch the football together. And I really like that, and I like the fact that the American culture is big. So it's if it's a celebration, it's a celebration. So I
Yeah,
really like that. And I've often said that, I mean, I'm British through and through. I'm coming back in a few weeks, and I cannot wait. But I've always said that it'd be good to kind of merge all the great things about both countries together, and that'd be like the perfect country,
I
right?
can hear. I can hear in my memory, in my memory, lots of people disagreeing with that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Lots of English people
Yeah.
disagreeing
But I
with
mean,
that.
that's the beauty of different countries, right? Is that you
Mm.
have those completely different experiences. But living abroad, I think, is key to this episode as well. Is that living abroad, not just going on holiday for a few months, but actually living somewhere and really, really living there and integrating. You realize how culture is different. Certain things that you think are just global when you're growing up, and certain things that you think are good, bad, indifferent, right, wrong, enjoyable, not enjoyable, is built into you from your culture. There's some things I just won't understand.
Mm.
Some things I've kind of took on board and have adapted, and it's become part of me. So I think that
That,
this is a topic that we could talk more and more about, right?
totally. I mean, and being a Londoner as well, I know a lot of people that didn't grow up in this country. And it's quite interesting that because you might use a cultural reference from your childhood that just falls completely flat on, for many years I called myself the token English because most of my friends were either South African or American or, European, French or German or whatever. And I'd quote something from a funny TV show from my teens and they go, huh? Go, oh God.
Yeah, yeah, I have
So
that
actually
here.
the ways that you relate to each other have become different
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
that. Now, before we wrap up, because we're nearly at our time, are there any etiquette things that are different
Well,
ways of?
this could be controversial, but I think, and I think we should have another episode on this topic. Absolutely. So
Mm.
we can embellish more. But I mean, the tipping culture is a big thing, right?
Oh
That's
yeah.
that's that's something that is can be controversial. I don't talk about it controversially though. For me, tipping, like in the UK, you tip what 10%, and your tip. I think the key thing here is that you tip if you're sitting down in a restaurant. Like you wouldn't go into a bar, buy a pint of lager,
And
and
tip
then
them.
tip
No,
them
no, because
because
it's
the
so
cost.
expensive.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the cost is the cost.
Mm.
I'll go to a food truck and then there'll be a tipping option. You wouldn't do that. But if you're sitting down in a restaurant and the service is more than just giving it to you, then you tip 10% and then you might go up to say 20%. Generally 20% is like, woo, it's been fantastic. But there's all different topics around that, and I find I do go in with the tipping culture because of depends on minimum wage and all those different things. But it's not just that; it's an actual cultural thing.
I always
That's
get a bit
possible.
confused when shopping in America because you go, oh look, this
Yeah,
shirt's only $20, and you get to the register and then they're adding VAT, and I'm like, I didn't realize I had to do maths in the shop. This is
yeah.
terrible.
Well, I'll
I'm
leave you
always
with this. I'll leave you with this story.
go on.
I recently purchased something online, and it was like a software system, so it was a lot, like $900 or something. I put in my details to pay. Before I clicked pay, or when it was like you went to the cart to pay and check out, it was like 980 odd or something because of local fees, county fees, this, tax, da da da. I'm like, what? Let me try something. And it was actually for my UK property anyway, to use over there business wise. So I put in my UK card and it was $900. That's a good thing to end on.
Now the IRS are going to watch this and find you.
That's it's all above board, but that's my point. That's what happens when you have states and countries as well. But what we have, which is key, it's about expectation management, isn't it? Right? Getting a bit
Mm,
project management here is that, like, when we go and see the cost of something, we see the cost of it.
yeah.
So you've got your expectations set already. You look at that and you'll either go, okay, that's too much, or okay. But then when you say okay and then get to the register and it's, an extra 50 odd bucks or something, then that's the problem. So
Mm.
it's rolling it in. Whether the fees are there or not is not the point. The point is seeing it, isn't it?
There's a lot of different attitudinal things that make that up. And indeed, I do think this is another episode. So,
Yeah.
to everyone watching, thank you, everybody that watched the last one. Um, do give us your ideas on differences in culture between the UK and the US. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to share with us, we'd love to hear from you. So, leave a message in the comments.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's great to have you here. And our next episode will be coming next week as well. So we look forward to speaking to you then. But let us know your thoughts.
See you later.
Bye.